Hello my Patreon friends, and I hope you're well. Looking forward to the weekend, so let me grease the wheels of your journey towards that welcome place. And let's do a little bit of HiFi news. I've got five products. I've got a kind of a lengthy any other business. I'm going to be sort of, what's the word? Musing. I will be musing, and I'm going to put a couple of ideas forward, music-based, and it'd be nice to have your comments, your views, please. So study that section closely, and it'd be nice to have your comments. But before we start, let's do some trivia. Here we go. And we are changing the subject to theatre and film studies, I think. And the question is this: which singer and guitarist was hired to play a mute executioner by the producers of Game of Thrones because they had been impressed by his blank expression in the documentary about his band? One more time. Which singer and guitarist was hired to play a mute executioner by the producers of Game of Thrones because they had been impressed by his blank expression in a documentary about his band? Intriguing one, I think you might agree. If you've seen the series, then this might be an easy one for you. If not, well, you have to scratch the old noggin, I think. I did, because I don't watch Game of Thrones, so it was a bit of a surprise to me. Anyway, I will tell you, if please don't Google or anything like that. Just have a little think. The blank stare is a big clue, folks. So at the end of the video, I will give you the answer. For now, HiFi news. First up, we're going to look at the HC4, a USB DAC from Astell&Kern. Now, I have a price. I'll tell you that now. £219 or $220 for Astell&Kern's new USB DAC, which should be available this month sometime, December 2023. Now, this little box features an AKM DAC chip, and it's the first time that Astell&Kern has used an AKM DAC chip in the unit this small. I believe with AKM units, there's a few little bits and pieces that need to be done. So normally they put the AKMs in a larger chassis, say a larger DAP or something, smartphone size and bigger. However, this time they put an AK4493S DAC chip in this little box, and that supports up to DSD256 or 32-bit 384 kHz PCM. The HC4 features dual outputs with both 3.5 and 4.4 millimeter connectors, obviously a single-ended and a Pentacon, allowing you to use the HC4 with most HiFi IEMs and headphones. To keep the size down to around 29 by 64 by 14 millimeters, Astell&Kern use micro resistors and capacitors, ultra small tantalum capacitors specifically. They also include DAR, which is digital audio remaster technology, and this is a kind of upsampling, you might say. There's also cabling, which supports Apple's Lightning and USB-C for everything else. Next up, Roon. Someone's bought them. And that someone is Harman. You might know them as Harman Kardon, or you might know Harman as the owner of a few other companies. They're reeling them in, is old Harman. Now, I firstly remember Harman when they were releasing HiFi kit under the Harman Kardon moniker. What I didn't realize back then is that Harman is in itself owned by Samsung. Then they started, maybe with Samsung's money, I guess, acquiring people like JBL and Ravel and Mark Levinson and AKG, Infinity and Lexicon. Well, now they've bought Roon. Apparently Roon will still operate as a standalone business. Operations will be run as is. Well, for now, I guess. So what is Roon getting out of all of this except for the cash? Well, apparently scale, global reach, extra resources, a rather large marketing spend, all that kind of stuff. I'll put a link below. Next up, we have a high-end turntable from Mobile Fidelity. This one has been created by Alan Perkins, and it sports a dual pivot carbon fiber 10-inch tone arm with a removable headshell and Cardass wiring within. This is a 3-speed design, and it includes a high mass platter made from aluminium and Delrin, and that sits upon an encapsulated spiral groove bearing, and that sits on a 2-layer plinth. The top layer is constrained aluminium, the bottom layer is solid wood. The feet, well, they're specially made by HRS, and I've reviewed some HRS stuff in the past, turntable stabilizers, things like that. Oh, and there's a 4-digit display, and that shows what speed you're running at, 33, 45, or 78. The turntable spans 51 by 36 by 20 centimeters, approximately, or about 20 by 14 by 8 inches. And it weighs in at 19.5 kilograms, or about 43 pounds. So this is no lightweight. And nor is the price, which is $5,995. Again, a link below. Now, last week I did a review of the Yamaha power amplifier, and from the same American company, we have news of the Yggdrasil, I think you pronounce it, Yggdrasil DAC, or this particular variation, the Yggdrasil MIB, which stands for more is better, apparently. So the MIB DAC includes 4 TI DAC 1100 1B 20-bit chips, plus 2 pairs of RCA outputs, 1 balanced out, and 5 digital inputs, including a Unison USB interface with electromagnetic and electrostatic isolation, all to keep the noise down, folks. It supports up to 24-bit 192 kHz, spans 16 inches by 13 by 3 inches, and weighs 25 pounds. The MIB costs, I have a dollar price for now, $2,599 in black, or $2,699 in silver. And there are upgrade boards planned for your basic unit, and they'll be priced at about $800 each. They're about 4 to 5 weeks away from availability, however. Next is the Merason Rios DAC, another DAC. This one is Swiss. And Rios is actually named after a Swiss river, I believe. This one has a 6-layer circuit board to reduce signal interference, with passive cooling via the chassis and centering around a Burr Brown PCM 1794A chip, 1 per channel, and there are 4 channels. You get a switch mode power supply that's only used to kick the unit out of standby mode. And then that switch mode power supply is deactivated, and from that point, 3 transformers take over. Inputs include coax and optical, AES and USB 2, spanning 454mm by 275 by 50mm. The Rios weighs 6 kilograms and is priced at €4,900. That's your news. Any other business is next. Now, this is a music-based any other business. I have a few wandering musings for you, and I'd be happy to hear from you on any of these points. So, where to start? Well, I've been listening recently to some of the old guard: Bing Crosby, Nat King Cole, Peggy Lee, Nina Simone, Tony Bennett, Sinatra, all that kind of stuff. Now, their times, their heights, you might say, ranged from the 1930s through to the 50s. Sure, they sang outside of those decades, but they truly shined around those particular times. I have also been listening to more modern rock, relatively speaking, from the 70s and 80s and 90s, plus some music released this year and last. And I have noted two distinct changes. Broad changes. And yes, there may be exceptions if you insist on being picky, but in broad terms, and boiling all my opinions down to bullet point form so this video doesn't drag on forever, I noticed this. Firstly, the classic performers, your Crosbys and Sinatras and the like, but they had one common denominator no matter where they sang. They sang personally for you. Firstly, they were no more than interpreters of the song. They kind of sat in the middle of the song. And I don't think the fact that most did not write their own songs, I don't think that really mattered. They were still interpreters, and interpretation is a particular skill, songwriter or not. Now, the song was the most important thing to each one of these singing superstars. But just as important was you as the recipient of that song. So these guys kind of stood in the middle of the song, and they were, I don't know, they were kind of a musical postman, a singing postman, you might say, securely delivering the mail, or in this case, securely delivering the song. These guys had to deliver each and every nuance of the song successfully. There could be no confusion here. Every word had to be intelligible. The idea was to communicate the song to you, personally, intimately. There was a narrative spine to each and every song, whether that be happy, or whether that be sad, or whatever. Rock bands, though, don't do that. Maybe they don't know how to. I'm not sure. Now, even those bands that are favourites of yours, I'm sure you'll agree, they tend not to do that. They kind of project a song into the middle distance somewhere. They tend to have attitude. Look at Led Zeppelin, look at Oasis, look at the Stones, T-Rex, the Sex Pistols. There is a like me or leave me attitude there. Now, I would say the song for these guys is less important. It has an importance, but I would say it's still less important. Style is just, if not more important than the substance of the song. This is our thing, for example, like it or hate it. And we don't care if you hate it. And we're not here to help you. We're not here to make your life easy. That's what the rock bands say. And if you don't like it, it's your fault. I'm not here to say that one style is right and another is wrong. And to be honest, I love both factions, if you can call them that, equally. I'm merely pointing out the differences. Now, when I was a kid, adults around me would talk about how music has changed from the old days. That was the conversation. And I'm not really talking about, well, I kind of am, but I'm not really talking about that. That's not the crux of what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the personal delivery of that music, the way you put over a song, that has changed a lot, and not too many people talk about that. Now, we talk about music delivery and we talk about the internet and streaming, but the delivery from one human being to another, that has also changed. Now, okay, let's be my own devil's advocate. Let me say to myself, well, Paul, what about these singer-songwriters of today? They communicate directly to you, don't they? And I would disagree, actually, because when I listen to modern day, and I'm going to sound like an old fogey here, wagging my finger, shouting at the clouds, but when I listen to modern singer-songwriters, I hear their style first. I hear them. The sound they offer sounds manufactured because I can hear it in so many other people. I can hear that same style. There's not a great deal of individualism here. I hear this repeated whiny, I'm helpless, please help me, I'm falling apart kind of technique, this kind of identity a lot of these guys. And look, maybe it's my age, maybe I'm turning into my dad. And I suppose you could have said the same thing to my younger self listening to the Smiths, for example. But hey, maybe you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. And another thing, that change in musical delivery of the song I mentioned. I would say the change in music has been massive. I'm not sure there has been a change in delivery in, say, canvas-based art or film or even books. I don't think the delivery of the message, as it were, has changed as much as it has in music. And finally, and I'm going off on tangents, I know, I suppose you could also draw a parallel with radio DJs. The DJ who talks intimately to you, almost on a one-to-one basis, and communicates a message directly. Whereas you can compare that to the more modern DJ. Let's say, if you know BBC Radio, Chris Moyles from BBC Radio 1, he's one example. His style of DJ is you feel you're eavesdropping onto his party and that you don't really belong there. That's the style of radio I've always disliked intensely. I much prefer the intimate style. Anyway, look, I've gone all over the place here, and my thoughts are not exactly ordered, as maybe they should be, but I just wanted to throw all of that out and chuck it in your lap, apologies, and see what you think about it. And am I talking a lot of rubbish? Because it's absolutely possible I am. Or is there anything in there you agree with? Or is there anything on there you'd like to elaborate upon? I would love to hear your thoughts. Right, I think that's it. Got that out of my system. Okay, before we say goodbye, let's look at an answer to that trivia question, which was, which singer and guitarist was hired to play a mute executioner by the producers of Game of Thrones because they had been impressed by his blank expression in a documentary about his band? And the answer is Wilko Johnson. The producers of Game of Thrones could have had their pick of the world's character actors, but they decided that only Johnson could play Sir Ilan Payne, the royal executioner. He hasn't been very talkative these last 20 years, since the Mad King had his tongue ripped out, another character explains. Wilko Johnson, by contrast, was the most talkative man in rock and roll. I'll be back next week with maybe less musings, but still, there will be trivia and there will be hi-fi news, and I'd love to have your company then. Thank you again, folks, for all your support. It's very much appreciated, and I'm always thankful for the support you give me. So, as I say, much appreciated. I'll be back next Friday, and have a great weekend, and I'll see you then next week. Bye-bye for now.